In these missing person cases, some of the last known moments of the individuals were caught on CCTV. It's hoped that these images and their stories might help lead to the cases being solved and the families getting the answers they deserve. Number 5. Whenever a person goes missing, there's always hope that CCTV footage might lead investigators in the right direction, and eventually the case will be solved. But in the case of Elara Emmanuel, a brief clip from a hotel has only led investigators in circles, and her friends and family are no closer to answers in this mysterious disappearance. Lara was 46 years old when she vanished in June of 2023. June 7th was a perfectly ordinary day for Lara. She was an elementary school teacher teaching 3rd grade at Alexander Hamilton Elementary School in Morristown, New Jersey. She adored her job and would often tell friends about the personalities of the children that she got to teach. The children adored her too, and she was well liked in the community. Nobody noticed anything out of the ordinary that Wednesday, and students expected to see their teacher again the following morning. But by the time the school bell rang the next day, Lara had completely vanished. Authorities were first alerted to her disappearance when Lara failed to return home from work. The next day, her car would be found roughly 13 miles from the school, parked outside a Holiday Inn Express. Her phone and wallet were left in the car, and there were few clues as to where she could have gone after this. Lara's phone was last pinged at 3:48 p.m. on the day she vanished. At the time, she was still at school. It's not known if she turned her phone off or if it had run out of battery at this point. The exact time when she left the school hasn't been recorded. Lara was living in Landing, a town in Roxbury Township, when she vanished. The journey home would have been almost identical to the journey to the hotel where her car was found. It would only be when Lara came to the I-80 at the end of her journey that there would be any difference. On a typical day, Lara would continue past the highway and into the small town. For some reason, she presumably decided to turn onto the highway and drive east for 4 minutes before coming to the hotel. Both journeys would have taken Lara past a Walmart. Investigators know that she did stop in at a Walmart on her way to the hotel. She bought 2 bags of chips and a small flashlight. Lara arrived at the hotel parking lot at 5:15 p.m. She was caught on CCTV getting out of her car alone, and there didn't appear to be anybody else in the vehicle with her. She wasn't under any duress, but was carrying the flashlight when she left the car. She didn't enter the hotel. Instead, she was seen heading towards the woods. After leaving the camera's field of view, she was never seen again. The hotel backed up to the Berkshire Valley State Wildlife Management Area. This is a heavily wooded area with difficult terrain. There were a few unofficial trails, but not in any area near the hotel, and there were more official parking spots only a short drive from the hotel. Most of the investigation so far has focused on these woods. There have been a few theories about why Lara would have gone for a walk in the woods at this point. Even if this had been typical behavior for Lara, June 7th was not a day to go walking in New Jersey. Smoke from the British Columbia wildfires was particularly severe that day, and the small flashlight that she brought would have made little difference. There were also much nicer areas to go walking. Despite this, police focused the search efforts on the woods, bringing in sniffer dogs and special search teams to search for any sign of Lara, but so far nothing has been found. Police initially asked the public to steer clear so that the scene wouldn't be contaminated. Since the official search stopped, Lara's friends have organized unofficial searches, but they still haven't found anything. It's possible that Lara never entered the woods at all, and the CCTV footage is more misleading than anything. The footage didn't actually show her going into the woods, only towards it. She may have decided to walk off towards the highway or somewhere else, possibly to get picked up by another vehicle off camera. Lara was going through a lot of changes in her life at the time. She was going through the process of a divorce. At one point, she had a restraining order against her husband, but that had been lifted by the time Lara vanished. There's no evidence this man had anything to do with her disappearance, and the police do not believe foul play was involved. She was also in the process of selling her home, though the house was pulled off the market when she vanished. All this would likely have been very stressful for Laura. Even though things looked fine from the outside, it's possible this stress was getting to her. It's been argued that she wouldn't have abandoned her dogs, and she would have known that disappearing in the middle of the week would have meant alarm was raised quickly. But people do things that wouldn't make sense when going through a mental health crisis. The problem with this theory, like every other theory surrounding this case, is that there's no evidence. Laura is described as 5 foot 6 inches tall and weighing around 125 pounds when she vanished. She had brown hair and green eyes. Anyone with information can contact the SNPF Missing Person Unit Anonymous Tip Line at 732-462-5793 or the Roxbury Police Department at 973-448-2100. Number 4. At some point between 8:30 and 9 p.m. on March 19, 2008, Kellen Charles McKelwey left a restaurant where he'd been having a meal with friends. He drove off and would never be seen again. On the 15th anniversary of his disappearance, the police again appealed for information that could help solve this strange case, and reissued CCTV footage of a person they believe could have had the answers they want. Unfortunately, it seemed like Kellen's friends and family are no closer to getting those answers now than they were all those years ago. Kellen was 25 years old when he disappeared. According to his parents, he was bright and excelled at math in school. He liked to work out and had worked as a bouncer at one point. When he disappeared, he worked at a call center in Burnaby, British Columbia, where he trained other staff members. His parents lived in nearby Surrey, and he was close with them and his younger brother. His parents would later describe him as having a wide range of friends. No problem getting along with any of them. March 19th was to be a big day for Kellen. It was the day he bought an apartment at 4132 Halifax Street. The apartment was a 2-bedroom, sub-apartment suite that had previously been owned by 2 people whose mortgage Kellen was taking over. According to property records, the apartment was assessed at $535,000, but Kellen had bought it at $675,000. Why he had overpaid so much is just one of the mysteries Kellen would leave behind. Not much is known about the dinner Kellen had at the Keg Steakhouse and Bar. He may have been celebrating his new home, but it could equally have been an ordinary dinner with friends. It's also not known if he was drinking, but he left in his bronze Honda Civic at some time between 8:30 and 9 p.m., presumably to go home. Not long after he left, he received a phone call from another friend. Kellen had told them that he would phone them back, but that call never came. Nobody realized Kevin was missing until the following day, when he failed to show up for work. His company contacted Kellen's parents, and they knew something was wrong. It was out of character for him to vanish without letting anybody know. The last text message his father had received from Kellen was about how he was looking forward to his grandmother's visit that weekend. His family saw no explanation for the disappearance. He was reported missing the same day, and the family immediately started the search. On March 24th, Kellen's car was located in the 5100 block of Halifax Street, just a few minutes' drive from Kellen's apartment, and a 25-minute walk. It was about half an hour's drive from the restaurant. The police would later reveal that it had been driven there by someone who used the car keys, but couldn't say if that was Kellen or not. A few days after the car was found, the police released still images of a person of interest. The individual was caught on CCTV footage in Kellen's apartment building. Images from the lobby area and outside were shared, but in each image the person's face was obscured by the winter coat that he was wearing. The coat was a distinctive puffy jacket with fur around the hood. The individual was also wearing a DC brand backpack. Despite the images being released early in the investigation, nobody has identified this individual. Rewards for information were offered, first to locate Kellen safe and sound, and then to locate his remains. The rewards didn't encourage anyone to come forward. There were a lot of rumors that were spread about Kellen's disappearance, especially early on. The police found no evidence that Kellen was involved in any illegal activity. The amount of gang-related activity in the area was hard for people to ignore, though. They speculated that either he was involved in something, or some of his acquaintances were. Police followed up leads, especially when specific gangs were named, but none turned up any answers. Police believed early on that there was foul play involved in Kellen's disappearance, but there was some doubt on that when his parents tried to have him declared as having passed away. Insurance companies pointed out discrepancies in Kellen's finances. He had previously owned a business that had come under investigation by the Business Practices and Consumer Protection Authority. It was accused of running a fake lottery. Kellen resolved the matter by agreeing to pay $60,080.95 to the agency to resolve the issue, and the business later closed down. The insurance companies also pointed out that mortgage payments on his new property were more than $1,000 more than Kellen's monthly income. They alleged that this was part of some money laundering scheme, or that Kellen had disappeared for financial gain. In the end, they agreed to have Kellen declared as having passed away, and their concerns seemed to have been resolved. It's possible that there was more to Kellen's life than his parents or the police knew, but it's also been pointed out how many young, physically attractive and fit young men went missing from British Columbia in the months surrounding Kellen's disappearance. The mystery may have had nothing to do with anything going on in Kellen's life, and he could have been the victim of an opportunistic criminal. Until Kellen is found, it's possible we'll never know. Kellen is described as being Caucasian, 5'10", and weighing 220 pounds. He has blonde hair, blue eyes, and a black and white dragon tattoo below his left shoulder. Anyone with information on the case can contact the Royal Canadian Mounted Police's IHIT at 1-877-551-4448. Number 3. A disturbing number of missing person cases never get the attention from the public that they need to be solved. Even those with CCTV images of the missing person don't necessarily get shared as frequently as needed. That may be the case with Gerard Conway, who remains missing more than 15 years after he was last seen. Details about Gerard's disappearance are scarce, and even the last known sighting of him is uncertain. Gerard last spoke with his mother at Christmas of 2006. It seemed like going weeks without contact was the norm for Gerard, but those weeks would turn into months and eventually years. He left behind 4 siblings, his parents, and a daughter who was just 10 years old at the time. The last confirmed sighting of Gerard took place in Cookstown, North Ireland, where he lived with a roommate. On January 25, 2007, he visited the bank on the town high street. Nothing out of the ordinary happened during the visit, and it wouldn't have been memorable if it hadn't been the place where the last known images of Gerard were taken. These CCTV images were later shared with the media in the hopes that it might jog someone's memory about this missing man. But so far, there's been no luck. Like most of the case, what happened over the next week or so is unclear. There are no reports of him acting strangely, or nobody else in Gerard's life causing concern. It's also not known if he had any medical problems during this time. He suffered from bipolar disorder, which meant he was classed as vulnerable when he disappeared. It's not clear if his condition had anything to do with the disappearance itself, but he didn't take his medication with him, which only could have made matters worse. Gerard was seen around Cookstown in the first days in February. According to missing Irish people, Gerard was last seen on February 6th at around 8 p.m. He was in Cookstown and walking, though where to or from wasn't specified. It wouldn't be until February 13th that he was reported missing to the authorities. Early on in the investigation, there were reported sightings of Gerard all over Northern Ireland, but Gerard also had links to the Republic of Ireland, so searches crossed the border. There were reports that he had traveled to England. There was no way to confirm any of these sightings, but extensive land and air searches took place, though no trace of Gerard was ever found. Over the years, there have been multiple searches for Gerard. In 2017, land in the Clare Lane area of Cookstown was searched using police and victim recovery dogs. A property in nearby Ardbow was also searched. The family have also conducted private searches, but each time they're left unrewarded with answers. It's believed that Gerard may have met with foul play, and someone knows what happened to him and where he is now. His parents have offered a substantial reward for information leading to his discovery. Gerard is described as being 6 foot tall, of medium build, and with dark brown hair. He had a scar above his right eyebrow and on his scalp. Anyone with information on this case is asked to contact the PSNI in Cookstown, or 101, or Crime Stoppers at 0800-555-111. Number 2. Ronald Lee Johnson went missing from Newtown, North Dakota in October of 2011, days before he was supposed to travel south for the winter. What might at first look like a typical missing person case becomes all the stranger when looking at where Ronald was last seen. Ronald was a 74-year-old father and family man. He enjoyed spending time with his children and sisters. He even had plans to spend the winter with one sister, who lived in California. It was a chance to catch up with his relatives, but also to escape the cold North Dakota weather. By October, Ronald was more than ready to go south for a few months, but he was waiting in North Dakota on an appointment at the Veteran Affairs Hospital in Fargo. Ronald had a few health problems, including diabetes, and had recently undergone a double bypass surgery. Other than that, he seemed to be relatively healthy and active, and had no known memory problems. The appointment at Fargo was for a stress test on October 17th, but Ronald also had plans for the day before that. He intended to visit his son in Jamestown on October 15th, then his sister in Valley City the following day. He would stay with his sister as the trip from Ronald's home in Riverdale to Fargo was a 4-hour drive, and Valley City was much closer to the hospital. After his appointment, he would be heading south. When he didn't show up at his son's home for the planned visit, his son was a little concerned. It wasn't like Ronald to not phone if he knew he was going to have a change of plans, but he just assumed that it had slipped his father's mind, as Ronald had a lot to prepare before leaving. The missed visit to his sister was also worrying, but it was only when he missed his hospital appointment that Ronald's family were concerned something was wrong. He would never miss an appointment at the VA hospital, and had been staying in the state specifically so that he could make the appointment. Ronald's son went to his home to see if he could explain the mysterious disappearance. What he found would only make matters even more confusing. A recent grocery purchase had been left on the side, as well as food, as if Ronald had been disturbed in the middle of something. His suitcase was also found open and half-packed. Ronald had left the house in a hurry, but not to go to any of his planned appointments. The police searched the local area for any sign of Ronald. Riverdale is a small community that sits on the shores of Lake Sakakawea. As Ronald's car was also missing, there was a fear that he might have accidentally driven into the water. Searches of the surrounding area turned up nothing, but checking Ronald's bank account turned up something extremely strange. Ronald's card had been used at an ATM in Newtown at the Four Bears Casino and Lodge. That alone wasn't too strange. Ronald was an avid poker player, and the casino was a big draw to the area. It was only about an hour and a half's drive from Ronald's home. What was strange is that the card had been used on October 16th, after Ronald had already missed the appointment with his son. The police were able to get CCTV footage from the casino. It was possible someone else had used Ronald's card, and that person might have been able to solve the mystery. But the footage showed Ronald at the casino. He had arrived the night before, and the card was used shortly after midnight. This moved the search radius away from Ronald's home and to Newtown. The casino was very close to the Missouri River, and Ronald would definitely have had to drive over it to get home. The drive home would have also involved passing smaller bodies of water, like Lake Vernon, before crossing Lake Audubon, when he was almost home. Ronald's family feared that he might have a medical emergency on the road, or swerved to avoid a deer and ended up in the water. Since then, the family has worked with volunteer dive teams to search bodies of water along Ronald's route. His gold 1982 Cadillac Fleetwood is still missing, and it's likely that they'll be found together. But that doesn't explain why Ronald missed the visit to his son. It's possible he just got his days mixed up, but the fact that he seemed to leave the house in a hurry is also strange. Ronald is described as being 5'11" and weighing 220 pounds. He was last seen wearing dark pants, suspenders, and a button-down shirt. Anybody with information should contact the McLean County Sheriff's Department at 701-462-8103. Number 1. James Nutley was a talented golfer who often traveled around the country to play the sport that he loved. He had a new job that allowed him to work in the industry, and he had his whole life ahead of him when he vanished without a trace in October of 2004. October 24th started like any other day for the Nutley family. James had a game early in the morning. He returned to his home in Wales, where his mother had saved Sunday lunch for him, before he was off again. The trip this time was to Tenby. He wasn't expecting to stay long and had arranged deliveries for when he planned to be back, but James still hadn't returned. Tenby is a quiet seaside town in Pembrokeshire. Most of the tourists come for its sandy beaches and a 19th century fort. By late October, the tourist season was over, but the 18-hole Tenby golf course would still be open. James and his friends arrived sometime between 5 and 5:30 p.m. Their plans were to play golf the following day, so they spent the evening visiting a few pubs in the area. At roughly 11:40 p.m., James left the Prince of Wales pub and began the walk back to his hotel. He was apparently alone, but when he was separated from his friends isn't clear. The walk from the pub to the Gilter Hotel where James was staying was only a 7-minute walk. Given that James had likely been drinking, the fact that it took him an extra 10 minutes to get there wasn't too worrying. James was again caught on CCTV at 11:57 p.m., walking towards the Atlantic Hotel. The Atlantic was only a few feet away from the Gilter, but James never made it back to his hotel and was never seen again. The next day, James's friends reported him missing to the police, and his parents were informed. At the same time, a group of children playing on the beach found James's wallet, driver's license, national insurance card, Euro golf card, and Paddy Power bookmaker's card. It didn't look like they had washed ashore, and it seemed as if all the cards had been deliberately removed from the wallet. Both the Gilter and the Atlantic do look out over the beach where these cards were found. They're separated from the sand by a small road and a fence. After the fence, there's a drop to the sand, with the water a little further back. With no other CCTV footage available, the police initially believed James may have ended up in the water. It's possible he decided to go for a swim while intoxicated, took his wallet out of his pocket, then ran into trouble in the water. But police estimated that there were 2 locations where his body would have washed up if this were the case. At one of these locations, a body did wash up, but it wasn't James. James's parents argued that he wouldn't have deliberately taken his own life. His new job involved demonstrating golf clubs at clubs around the country, and it was one that he was very excited about. He hadn't shown any signs of any mental health problems. It also seems unlikely he accidentally ended up in the water. It was a stormy night when James went missing, with gale force winds, but if he had stumbled over the fence, he likely would have been found on the beach or the rocks below, rather than ended up in the water. He was also shown on CCTV walking with his back to the sea. While normally an intoxicated young man ending up in the water is the obvious solution in missing person cases, it doesn't make sense when James was so close to his hotel. Years after James's disappearance, a man named Milford Haven claimed to have taken James's life with the help of his girlfriend. He says he dumped the body in the sea. He went into detail in his story, but those details didn't add up, and he later confessed to making the whole thing up. He was sentenced to 27 months in prison for trying to pervert the course of justice. Almost 19 years later, James's parents hold on to hope that he might still be alive somewhere, but they want answers as to what really happened that night. James is described as 6'2", with brown hair, and wearing a white top with blue sleeves and blue jeans when he vanished. Anyone with information can contact the police at 101 or Crime Stoppers at 0800-555-111. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But my name is Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.